Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and today, it seems like, today especially, I get some topics that really fire me up, and I don't know if they fire you up too, but heading into free agency and just thinking about how some of our own fans criticize the Pittsburgh Steelers, supposed to be fans, heavily critical of our team when we head into this free agency and draft period. And I don't know if it's just one of those things where they feel we're not winning the free agency battle. Oh, they're not going after anybody. They're not spending all this money. They're going to suck. They're not going to be any good. They're not signing guys. They're not spending millions of dollars. That's just not how the Pittsburgh Steelers work. They don't operate under the intention of going out and having a miserable season or deciding, hey, we're going to trade up 2 spots to get this guy that we really want in the draft, even though they don't have to move up 2 spots to get him because the other teams ahead of them, they don't care about this guy. In fact, most of the teams behind him probably don't care about the guy either. That's a dangerous game that you play. That's a dangerous game that all of the clubs in the NFL play. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. It's about these fans that are out there that are kind of doing the Monday armchair quarterback thing and criticizing the team with maybe not necessarily knowing what they're talking about. I'll admit sometimes I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything, but I know what I see. I kind of have an understanding of how this works. I've been following this team since I was basically in diapers. And for most of that period of time, they've been pretty darn good. I mean, we're talking about a team that hasn't lost or had a losing season since 2003. Whew, that's a long time. That's pretty much the entire time that they've been playing in Heinz Field. They've had a couple subpar seasons. We'll look at 2012, 2013. They were 500, 8-8 seasons. And even then, one of those seasons, it came up until the last game, and not even the last game, a game that after them that they weren't even playing in, that decided their fate as to whether or not they made the playoffs. Think about that. 8-8, 500 record. You're done playing for the year, and you still are in it up until the very end, just like this season. And yeah, they got some things that went their way. They got in this time, unlike the last time in 2013. But like 2013, they were injured. They suffered a lot of injuries, and you kind of have to give the benefit of the doubt and the trust to this front office. You got your general manager, Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin, all of his offensive, defensive, special teams staff. These guys get it together. It doesn't matter, who's hurt. They're putting bodies out there. They're replacing bodies that retired. And some other teams would absolutely kill to have that type of success. I mean, you're looking at, since 2003, they haven't been under 500. Been in the playoffs most of those times. There are a few seasons, maybe just a couple seasons, under Bill Cowher if they didn't make it. Got a couple under Mike Tomlin where they didn't make it either. They're still doing pretty darn good. And that leads me to the free agency battle. I mean, you got some teams that are out there and they just start floating money around. I'll name one of them. Most of you that know me personally or talk to me on the various message boards, forums, social media, my wife's a Cleveland Browns fan. I know, very painful, but, when you grow up in Northeast Ohio, you have to deal with that. Browns fans and Steelers fans, both sides of the family here. And that's why Cleveland Browns are a good example. They hate me talking about the Browns, but they know it's true. That's a city of misery. You look within your own division, and most of the Pittsburgh fans, they miss that rivalry too. They see Cincinnati, they see Baltimore having pretty solid football clubs, even though it pains us to admit it. You look at a team like Cleveland, and I just remember several years ago, since that Tim Tebow touchdown against the Broncos in overtime and the Steelers lost, just a year removed from being in the Super Bowl, and you start seeing guys retire. You have that disastrous opening game for the year, and you lose 4 starters. You lose your defensive captain with Larry Foote, and you lose Marquise Pouncey in that season. One of your running backs, they had no running back depth at all before Le'Veon Bell came to town. You had Ike Redmond, who was always hurt and eventually retired before Steelers West, i.e. Arizona Cardinals, went and plucked him, and that didn't work out. Everybody was banged up. What are you supposed to do? And they're still putting out 500 average seasons. They're not losing. And fans are still going to say, why aren't we spending money? Look at Cleveland. They're going to go out there and they're going to go do what? Pay $8 million to Dwayne Bowe? I think he had less catches than Terrell Pryor, who they plucked off of waivers or free agency out of the middle of the season, converted him from a quarterback to a wide receiver, and he has more catches than this prized free agent that you signed. You couldn't even get him on the field. That's such is life if you're a Browns fan. They get these high first-round draft picks. They're going to be picking second overall again. Probably going to go after another quarterback because the last one they picked, Johnny Manziel, he isn't worth a flip. You got Josh McCown. I mean, he's, I think, approaching 36, 37 years old. He was ready to leave the league several seasons ago. Guys collecting paychecks. Doing a pretty darn good job, but still, it's Cleveland Browns. They're not winning. They're on another coach again. They're on another front office staff. They're a constant carousel. And it just makes the hair on my back of my neck raise when I hear some of these fans talk and say, fire Tomlin. He doesn't know what he's doing. Fire Todd Haley. They don't know what they're doing now. Putting up huge offensive numbers, winning games, not losing since 2003. No losing season. Cleveland's had, I don't even know how many coaches. I mean, Pittsburgh's only had 3 in the last 30-some years. You tell me who's successful. Pittsburgh's winning. They're always drafting late in the draft. A few times they moved up. You look at the guys they moved up to get. Troy Polamalu, future Hall of Famer. Ben Roethlisberger, future Hall of Famer. Heath Miller, stand pat, get Heath Miller. That's like 3 years in a row. Troy, Ben, Heath. Jeez. Cleveland's getting guys like Brandon Weeden and Johnny Manziel, and they can't get Justin Gilbert on the field. They moved back and then traded up to get him. They could have had Sammy Watkins, even though that guy has his own issues being healthy, but that just goes to show you. Oh, we didn't get Sammy Watkins. We want Sammy Watkins. I heard Mike Evans a couple years ago. Jeez, guys, relax. Front office knows what they're doing. They don't spend a whole lot of money, and when they do, it turns out to be pretty good. You can think about the few free agents that they've picked up. Mike Mitchell, there's one. Iffy first year, said he was hurt, had a fantastic year last year. A lot of people still doubt him, but no drop-off there from probably an upgrade from what Ryan Clark was doing his final year. And Ryan Clark, there's another free agent. Another guy, they plucked him from Denver, and look what he did. Doesn't happen often. D'Angelo Williams, God, they even miss a beat with Le'Veon Bell out missing? No. So, you look at who they draft, and some are going to question Ryan Shazier, but geez, when he's out there, look at that. Ryan Shazier he pretty much won the Bengals game aside from Vontaze Burfict and Pac-Man Jones giving it away. Can't fault that. I think that's worth the round or the position he was selected in. I think 15th overall a couple years ago. Look at Bud Dupree. Jury's still out on him. Got to give him a couple years. Same with Jarvis Jones. Still kind of an incomplete. But wow, Cam Hayward. Yeah, that's a good pick. A lot of good picks. Marquise Pouncey. Another guy. Stays healthy. Best in the league. So I don't know where the doubt is when other teams, you look around and you see teams like Oakland Raiders, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, always in the basement, always drafting high, always a rotating door of players on their roster, so they always have money to spend. They're going to go out, and one of these teams are going to go try and attract somebody that just won the Super Bowl. And we're going to pull somebody from the Denver Broncos, or one of these teams have been successful for a while, like the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to grab their players, maybe not even the best players. Those teams have their system too, and they're going to go and they're going to have a rotating door, but not as frequent of turnover. They got their next man up, and most of these teams don't even have the guy yet, let alone the next guy. You look at Pittsburgh Steelers this year, and they not only had the guys, but they had the next guy, and maybe in some cases the next guy. And I guess that's what upsets me. Deep within my gut, it upsets me that some of these fans are going to come out in a couple weeks. First day of free agency, Steelers aren't making a big headline spending spree type signing. No huge contract on day 2 either. Probably passing on people by day 3, and by then, all the excitement of free agency's gone. Oh my God, one of these other teams, they spent money. They had the money. They spent it. They need it. They need to go out and get good players because they don't have any. Steelers don't have to do that. They've got good players. And I'm just asking some of our fans, maybe if this isn't something that you already understood, just get on board with it. I know you got that anxiousness. We need to add that one piece. We're going to go straight to the Super Bowl, but that's not how these teams are built. That's not how the championship teams are built. You can't build all-star teams. You've got salary caps. You spend a lot of money on one guy. How are you going to spend money on the other position? So it's moving pieces. It's like a chess game. A lot of people want Eric Weddle from the Chargers. I've already commented on that. I don't think we could afford him. Takes a discount, maybe. You see what John Elway did. He kind of mortgaged the future there in Denver. Now they got some hard choices to do because they went out and they got Peyton Manning. They won the lottery for Peyton Manning a couple years ago. Worked out for him. 2 Super Bowls, 3 years. Atop the AFC most of that time. But Peyton Manning's going to ride off into the sunset. They got to figure out what they're going to do. They got to pay Von Miller. Probably going to have to make some difficult choices. They may have to cut somebody that they have or not sign someone else who's a free agent. They got to figure out what to do with quarterback. Is Manning going to come back? Brock Osweiler, free agent. Wasn't too bad, especially with that good defense, but you're going to have to pay that man. That means you're going to have to let somebody on that defense go. Hopefully the next man up's ready to go. Cheaper price. The best analogy for the Steelers this year when it comes to that, they just gave Sean Sweejum a huge contract heading into last season. He goes down, go through 2 more kickers. You end up with this kid that's just kind of floating around, Chris Boswell, and as people were calling him the boss, he was a boss. And he's younger. It's going to be a lot less expensive to keep than Sean Sweejum, and that's just the kicking position. Shuffle that money around somewhere else. Maybe you can get a Weddle. Maybe you extend Le'Veon Bell. He's going to need a lot of money to keep him in Pittsburgh, especially when people still think he's one of the best, if not the best, all-around running back in the NFL. And they're saying that, even though he's hurt, coming off another injury. Though it's not his fault. Antonio Brown, you're not going to let that guy go. Geez, how many people were criticizing they're criticizing Pittsburgh when they didn't want to sign Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace is holding out, and everybody's like, oh, Mike Wallace. And they said, no, we're going to have a pretty decent size, not big, but decent, $45 million, 5 years, I believe, for Antonio Brown versus what Mike Wallace wanted, 60-some million, 4 years down in Miami. He wasn't even there this year. They traded him to Minnesota for a 5th-round draft pick. 5th-round draft pick. They thought Mike Wallace was only worth a 5th-round draft pick. You think Antonio Brown's worth a 5th-round draft pick in any of the years since Wallace has left? Even when Wallace was still here, Brown's his needle's pointing up, skyward, still is. I don't know how he could get any better, but he seems to keep surprising us. And that's where you got to keep the faith, Steeler Nation. Don't panic. Don't get that anxiety. Free agency is going to come along. They're going to add a few pieces. They've got some holes. They're going to sign some of their own guys. That's what these good clubs do. That's what Green Bay Packers do. That's what the New York Giants did for years too. Although, albeit, a couple of their moves blew up in their face and they got a rebound. Victor Cruz. Can't remember the one kid's name, the one running back, out of the league. Out of their control. And that's what happened to the Steelers, those 2 8-8 years. But any of those teams I mentioned, every team I mentioned, all other 31, they'd kill for those 8-8 years. They would kill, trust me, to have the consistency and the success that the Pittsburgh Steelers do.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.